Yes, you are seeing that correctly. He is losing 45,000 health per time I gash him. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you in this video how to do that. Alright, let's do it. So guys, what is up? It's Teach here, coming at you again with another video, and I have a very interesting video for you. In this video, I'm going to show you 10 amazing ways to get rid of these behemoth death creatures behind me that seem to be unstoppable, but in reality, they're quite easy to counter. Just so you can see, I have one without a saddle on, and it's got a lot of health just so I can show you the testing purposes of it. And then I have one with a basically maxed out 150 saddle for like official rates, basically. You can see 157, 865,000 health as well. So these things have some nope, I didn't want to do that. So this has some crazy health on it. Now the big issue that we're having nowadays, and I'm sure people are aware of this, is that these giant turtles of death will literally just, just shred your entire base because they can just walk backwards. But there are a few ways to counter these things, and I've been testing. I've got dinos set up that counter them, I've got turrets that counter them, and I have weapons that counter them. So before we start, if you don't mind giving a like and a subscribe, that would be awesome. Thank you so much for those of you that supported me so far. And there's my little plug. But other than that, let's go ahead and show you 10 different ways to counter this. Now, each of these ways is a little bit different, and I'll show you the comparison. So we have all 5 turrets in front of us: ballista, cannon, RPG, boulder, and minigun. I'm going to go from the worst to the best. Do not use the catapult. I had someone the other day tell me, first off, it's really hard to hit somebody with a catapult. So it's like not even worth it at all to shoot somebody with a catapult because you do almost no damage at all, unless it's a larger tame. So you can see 281 to the head. I know that seems like a lot. It's not at all, because these things have like 150,000 health when they're raised. Catapult's useless. Don't use it. Don't even bother. Next most useless thing, the minigun. You can see headshots still only worth 65. It's just not worth it. You can aim for the legs, but you've got to be in pretty close proximity to actually shoot them in the legs. So that's something you want to be careful about. Now it does seem like you're doing a lot, but I mean, this is an unsaddled one with 474 damage. Yes, if I did have something that was unsaddled, so if someone's throwing unsaddled Megachelons at you, this is a great way to shred them, but for the most part, this is what you're going to be hitting with, and it's not worth it. Let's be honest. I mean, I'm hitting like, give or take 200-ish a second. And that's assuming you're hitting the head and not missing and within range. Not worth it to use a minigun. Next thing, rocket. Not very useful. The only thing that's kind of useful about this, you can see that right there, is splash damage. It takes a bunch of splash damage from these guys. So if you're looking to get rid of the player off the backside of it, this is a very fantastic way to do that. Because basically, if you can just figure out where their box is and just launch rockets up at them, it does a good amount of damage to unsaddled ones, but saddled ones, the splash damage is only like 500 damage, and it's not worth it. It's really not. Now let's talk about these next two. These two are actually useful. This is the most valuable, by the way. We'll talk about that in a second. So the cannon. Now the cannon right here, if we're going to go and aim up. Now the one thing, it's immobile, so you have to remember that aspect of it. It does 247 damage to the head, so it's good, but it also does that torpidity, which is quite nice. So that's, pretty big time. However, with an unsaddled one, this is where it's kind of nice. It does that 1800 damage to the head, which is a lot of damage, especially considering that if you reload and constantly shoot this thing, you can do probably a shot every like 2 to 3 seconds, which is 2,000 damage every couple of seconds, and then hit some splash damage sometimes. That's a lot of damage. That's not a gentle amount of damage. But that being said, let's move on to the next thing. This is the monster of them all. This is the ballista turret. This is the weapon you wish you knew of. So, one shot to an unsaddled one, 1350 head or legs, that's the soft part. With a max saddle, it still does 830 damage. Now here's the best part of these things. You can fire these ballista bolts incredibly fast. I'm saying you can probably release 2 a second per take, right? 2 a second, that's about what we're doing. And on one of these guys over here with a full maxed out saddle on this thing, that's 1600 damage a second. To give you a comparison, that means that every 10 seconds that you're doing, give or take, 16,000 damage, which means that in 100 seconds, which is a minute and a half, if you are solo in a minute and a half, you can shred one of these things with a max saddle and 160,000 health. Okay, incredibly accurate too. You can see that these things like have their now their faces are just impaled. But now here's what I want you to think about. Let's say you're in a larger tribe. You have 3 or 4 people shooting these at the same time. That means that per second, if you have 4 people shooting these, you are doing 6,000 damage per second. That means in 10 seconds, you're doing 60,000. That means if there's an 180,000 health Megachelon, you can kill it in 30 seconds. I'm not kidding. 30 seconds. That's how fast it is. So this is by far the best turret that you can use. A lot of people weren't using these. I hope you start using them ahead of time because it's really cheap to make them and really cheap to make the bolts. So even if someone like rockets or picks you off of this thing, it's not even like a concern, because if you can take somebody off the backside of this, that's, you know, pretty good. And let me give you something obvious. This isn't even the best way to counter it. So I would say of these two are probably your best 2 methods, with the cannon as well as this actual ballista bolt. If you got close enough, maybe the minigun turret, but I still doubt it. So let's talk about the weapons in my inventory now. So there's a couple, there are a couple of basically useless ones, and then one that kind of surprised me. Tech rifle, basically useless against this thing, because yeah, sure, it does 82 damage a shot, but by the time you actually do some damage to these things, it's not worth it, and they've got that healing, so you're not going to be able to counter whatever healing they're doing. Now, harpoon launcher, this is the shocker. This is the one that I was impressed with. Harpoon launcher to the head, you can do about a shot a second, give or take, is doing 400 per shot. Now that is pretty nice, because 400 per shot with a max saddle, let's say you could do something a little bit less than a max saddle, 666, not too bad. But I'm sure some of you already realize this, the compound bow is the king here. Because with a compound bow, you can go really far away and counter the Megachelon. Let's say I want to stand back here behind a wall or something like that. You just have to get the right shot and then constantly release arrows. And if you hit with consistent arrows over time, you get 3 different damage ticks that increase the amount of damage you're doing. And you actually want to aim for the leg, because if you hit him in the leg and consistently hit the same spot, you can do up to 600 damage. 627, there you see right there. Now there's also a few spots underneath the neck with the compound bow that you can hit. If you can hit his neck, you can see that 636 damage on that shot right there. So the compound bow can probably fire 2 arrows a second, which means you're getting about, give or take, 1,000-ish damage a second on average with a max saddle. You're hitting something without a max saddle, you're doing 1,400. So 1,000 damage a second, and if you've got 10 to 15 guys running around just like launching these things, that's pretty solid. Just so you know, this bow itself has 350% damage. So it's a pretty high level compound bow, but nothing that's like unachievable. Now, as you can see, these guys do get shredded. They got a lot of health, but they get shredded pretty quick. Let's say you're in a super tribe, 10 people running around doing 1,000 damage a second. That means 10,000 damage total per second. That means every 20 seconds you can kill a Megachelon. Now, I don't care who you are. If you're rushing somebody's base, they're getting turrets combined in there, and you're unloading your compound bows at them, nobody is going to be able to survive that. That's just the end of it. Nothing you can do. So obviously you have to hit the legs or the head, so that makes it a little more difficult if you're from behind. Just to show you, 168's a big difference. But anytime you hit the soft spot, you do a massive amount of damage. So you can see right there, like if I hit on the back side of this leg when someone's backing it up, it's 960 damage you saw right there. Not a joke. That's a lot of damage. So the compound bow is a real king of the weapons. Now you can try and use yourself. This right here, this Fabby Sniper, not super useful, because with that reduced damage and the probability of you missing some shots, 70 damage is just not enough to actually take out a Mega Turtle. It's just not. So that's kind of, that's the weapons. Now the last thing that you can use, if you really want to, and you happen to get up nice and close to these things and you happen to have it in your inventory, C4 is actually pretty good. 8, really? Thank you. Okay. So now that we've got C4, I'll just show you what 2 C4 looks like. Yeah. So with an unsaddled one, 2,250. with the saddle on it, 875. So if you were to pop down, I mean, here's the issue. Making C4 isn't super cheap, and you'd have to sit there and throw it underneath him, so you're in danger. You'd need to throw down 200 C4 in order to kill just one Megachelon, so probably not worth it. But if you were up on top of their back to get rid of the rider, that's where it's worth it. So we've gone through the weapons, we've gone through everything that we need to. Now let's move on to something that's a little bit more impressive. Now, what's more impressive is the dinos that you can use. I've got the Wyverns lined up because these are probably the best that you can use. Blood, not useful. Tropical, not useful. Ember, not useful. Ice, not useful. And I tested them, that's how I know this. The second most useful Wyvern is the Lightning Wyvern. Now, just to show you, if you get up nice and close and shred one of these things, that's a lot of damage, in case you're curious. That's an absolute load of damage. It's probably 3,000 damage, maybe 4,000 to an unsaddled turtle. However, to a saddled turtle, you can get up nice and close. Look at all those tick markers. That's a lot right there. That's probably 2,000-ish, 3,000-ish damage. But the negative side, you've got to get really close, and you basically have to have taken the rider out, and that's just, you know, what you can do. But that would be, this is probably the second best, and I'll show you why in a second here. So, negatives of this dragon is you have to be up really close. You have to, well, for lack of a better word, you probably have to be on the ground because it's really hard to hit from the sky on these things. Otherwise, you know, you're in big trouble. Also, super squishy because when someone starts shooting your wyverns, it's already over. Wyverns are almost instantly shredded by any shotgun. So, that's one thing you want to be careful of. But let's talk about the true champion, the poison wyvern. Now this guy was my unexpected hero because he does the, oh boy, as long as you can hit with him, he does the same damage, 1023, plus the boost to both of them because he ignores armor, or she, whichever one I happen to have right now. And you can sit here, let's say they've got two lined up, you can just sit here and fire this from a safe distance. And their little poison balls go a long ways, so you could even hide like up above or behind something, whatever you needed to do to feel safe. And you just assault them with your, this is going to sound bad, assault them with your balls from distance. Because, one, not only is this awesome for the actual thing itself, but if you hit the rider, most people do not have the ability to survive a couple of these because they're going to get gassed out. The rider goes away, you do increased damage overall, and that's just, you know, amazing. So, Poison Wyvern, that is where it's at for taking on these guys right here. So you could do this while flying. Again, super soft, so you have to make sure that you can avoid people shooting you. But if you're countering or pushing, Wyverns are brilliant for taking out Megachelons. Absolutely brilliant. They're really top tier for that. But they're still not my favorite. They do a lot of damage. You just saw that. Let's say you've got a bunch of people on Poison Wyverns. Megachelons have no chance because they ignore armor. But here's the next couple of tames. The Basilisk. Same thing as a Poison Wyvern, right? Just so you can see. I just damaged that thing right in front of me. Thank you, Pteranodon. Yeah, gotcha. It'll help you heat seek a little bit, but as you can see right here, 508 damage. I haven't put anything into melee on this guy, so this is just, you know, what it is. And you can sit here on the ground, go ahead and just assault these things endlessly. Yes, over and over and over again, and they don't take any sort of reduction in damage from a saddle. So, with a Basilisk, if you're moving around, you just tap that spacebar to go back under the ground, and no one can hit you again unless they have C4. So then you just pop up every now and then when they're not paying attention, launch a couple more of these things, and you have yourself a absolute Megachelon shredder, just in general. Excuse me. This guy's just a good tame to have in general. So that's the Basilisk. Obviously super useful, whether you're, you know, doing what you want to do with them or not. They're pretty amazing little tames. And yeah, just leave them under the ground. Now, the next up, there are a couple here. Some people have been telling me that Velonosaurs are basically useless against these things. Unless you can get really close, you're only going to do 20 damage a shot on a decent one. So it's not even worth your time. Don't even bother with the Velonosaur because you're just not going to be able to do enough damage in the time you need. Now let's talk about the two best dinos to attack this. Allosaurus, and Deinonychus. This is my favorite, Deinonychus. However, I can see these being just like nightmare destroyers of justice. So, with the Deinonychus, it's got its jump attack. You know about that. You can't latch onto a Megachelon, actually, so that kind of sucks. But if you've got 5 or 6 people on Deinonychus, check this out. Yeah, it is doing 1,700 damage to that one and 1,000 damage to that one per hit. Now here's the next best thing. This isn't bleed damage technically. This is just damage in general. So this is just doing that damage hit marker on a regular basis. Now check this out. Now, if I sit here and I increase the number of times that I hit, look at the amount of damage that I'm able to do. Yeah, that is 1,900 on the left and 4,000 on the right. Now, I'm not kidding. You can shred Megachelons with Deinonychus. Now, Deinonychus are squishy, but they raise so fast, it's not even funny. So, literally, get yourself out of Deinonychus, and it's game over. It's a different level of disgustingly amazing. So, if someone's raiding you from above, if you can sneak underneath them like this is still an area that you can hit them and do that increased damage because there is no protecting against the Deinonychus damage that you're seeing right there. The Deinonychus can just sit underneath and absolutely smoke the Megachelon. If you're not on a server where numbers like mine exist, how are they even going to know you're down here? They won't. So in a matter of seconds, you could shred yourself a Megachelon. That is 2,000 damage. Let's look at the actual marker there, okay? So it looks like every like half to 3/4 of a second they're doing 2,000-ish damage. So at 2,000, let's just call it 4,000 damage a second to be fair to this Deinonychus right here. At 4,000 damage a second, you would be able to kill a very, very strong Megachelon by yourself in 40 seconds. 120, I guess literally, we're just going to go back to this. I'll show you. So, if you can stay under here unnoticed, 1,900 damage right there, you're seeing it just chunk away. That's a lot of damage. Now, that's not even my favorite. Now, we're talking 40 seconds for 160,000 health. That's crazy. Now, the next thing that I want to show you is this guy. This, my friends, is the Allosaurus. This one does so much damage, it doesn't even show up because it's actual bleed damage, not like the Deinonychus bleed damage. See that little indicator in the upper right corner up there? I'm just going to, increase this by 3 points just so you can see. So, in the upper right corner, you'll be able to see that, like, Nash bite marker thing. And what happens as long as you have 3 nearby, you can activate his right-click attack, which allows you to do bleed damage. And I'm going to show you something that's just bonkers. Okay, so, there's that right there. I'm going to go ahead and get this out. Look at the health. It's going down in chunks of 30,000. Okay, that's because it does real bleed damage. So it does 5% of his damage per bite. So we're gonna go ahead and show you real quick here. So right now, 648,000. Okay, that's what he's at, 648,000. If I bite again, watch how much he drops. He goes from 648,000 to a total of 605,000. So, because it does percentage-based damage, the Allo just did 40,000 damage. 5% of his health. So, let's say you get, let's just call it 7-8 people riding Allosauruses. They all put their bleed effects on this guy. There is no chance of surviving this. You are toast. Doesn't matter what you do, the Allosaurus is gonna come get you. So, the Allosaurus puts that bleed effect down, and you can just watch that health. I mean, it's amazing. Look at the health just disappear. Look at it. Look at it. That's insane. Just crazy. Crazy good. So, anyways, I really do hope this helps you out. And hopefully this helps you get rid of these massive things. That obviously, I've just showed you plenty of different ways to take it out. You got the Basilisks, the 2 different types of Wyverns, Allos, Deinonychus. You could use the cannon if you really wanted to. Different styles with those. The ballista, which is a champion. Compound bow. Harpoon gun. And let me show you one little bonus one at the end of this. If you can get underneath with a good chainsaw. Check this out. So, 6 damage, right? 20 damage, right? But here's the big thing. If I can get underneath this guy and just continue to chunk away because it does extra damage to his shell, I'm doing a lot of damage as a solo player. That's not too shabby. So, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that's a lot of damage. And then if you're doing it with a lower saddle, look at that, 100 damage every couple of seconds. A little bit of a bonus thing, chainsaw for you. So, anyways, hopefully this video helps you out, and hopefully you can counter yourself some Megachelons of death. But anyways, other than that, teach.